Hi all. So I wanted to talk a little bit about something interesting, and that would be dark spirits and negative energies. I want to tell a little bit of a backstory about what has happened to me, or I should say, what has happened to Tyler. And I want to explain this to explain that maybe whoever this may come across, it might help them, um, because the journey that I've been on, it took a long time to get out of that negative vibrations. And we did also have a dark entity attached to us, but the reason why that happened, I'll explain. So I want to go back to when Tyler was probably in preschool. And I think maybe it started then and just built up and up and up and up. First off, when I talk about negative energies and dark spirits, it's nothing to be scared of. It's not like you're looking at some horned devil or something. It's really the negative or dark entities are the negative feelings, the lower vibration feelings that us as humans tend to have because of all the things that happen in this world. And so over the past year, I've been tasked with trying to break that down, and I've gotten pretty far. Not 100%, and I'm going to keep working on it. And but I've gotten pretty far, and I've went to like kind of a pretty angry person, that why did all these horrible things happen to me? Why did I get divorced when my kids were one? Why did both my children have autism? Why did I lose my job? Why did I get treated the way I did at my job? All of these things, having a pity party for myself, and I've gotten out of that, and I've let that go. And it's taken a lot of work, and I've done it through a process that was downloaded to me, and still working on it, still perfecting it, if it is ever going to be perfected. I don't know, but to talk a little bit about the negative energies, it really is a spiral, and those negative feelings that we have and we carry attract the negative spirits, and that's what the negative entities are. And the only way, and I learned this from the beginning too, because originally when I first started this spiritual journey, I would yell at them and tell them, "Go away, get out of here. You're not welcome." Well, that didn't work. What works is giving them love and light. And because the negative can't take the positive. And still every day we're fighting it, because people have a hard time accepting this one little statement that, if you give the negative love and light, it's going to go away. It's proven over and over and over again the past year, and it's taken a lot for me to change my outlook on this. Other things that bring in negative energies is fear, worry. I in the beginning of this was worrying like crazy, well, oh my God, my boys are going to be 18. Now what? What's going to happen to them after school? What are they going to do? The laundry list of questions, even thinking about it, I'm exhausted, but I have let that go, most of it, of course I'm going to still, I still go back down a little bit, but now I come back a lot quicker, and I know how to get rid of those negative energies. And, I'm working towards completely being spiritual. And, and by the way, those negative energies, it's all, it's all attached to ego, because if you take ego out of the equation, you only have your spiritual self. And we are one with the universe. Like, there's no, and if you have that outlook, there's no negativity out there. It's just, we're all the same, like, we're all like part of everyone. And, if we're part of everyone, you have somebody that's treated you badly, if you get angry at them, then in turn, you're doing exactly what they're doing to you. So, it'll never change. It's like this karmic loop, so at least that's what I've come to realize, so I want to just, tell some of the stories that have happened. So again, going back to preschool, with Tyler, it kind of started there, he, and not to leave Cole out of this either, he's, got his disabilities too, so-called disabilities, they say disabilities, but I'm beginning to realize that they're actually so much further than we are. And they're, at least they've helped me, like, they've helped me open my eyes. It's, I believe that they're so connected that they've come here to teach me how to open my eyes to see what you can't see. Now, I don't know if that's the case for every autistic child, every special needs child. This is what my experience is. And my experience is they are completely and utterly connected to source, the universe, everything. And they came here to teach me. And they're doing a pretty damn good job of it. So, regarding any other special needs children, I don't know. I mean, I can't speak for that. Maybe I'm doing these videos to see if, like, maybe, other parents come across things that they've tried and they haven't gone this angle. Maybe that's it. I don't know. But I do know is that between the difference between Cole and Tyler, is that, Cole he has a little bit more speech. Tyler is completely nonverbal, and Tyler has definitely embraced the spirituality more than Cole. And I believe that is because, Cole is in a typical high school. He's in a self-contained classroom, but he is still in a typical high school. So he has the society part of him could be repressing that a little bit. Whereas Tyler is in a specialized autistic school, and it's a much different approach. So that's only my theory about my particular situation. But anyway, going back to talking about what happened to Tyler. So when he was in preschool, he was in a typical in the school district. And when he was 3, he got transferred out to a special needs school, and has been out of district since then. They just couldn't meet his needs. But I think some of his challenges did start there, and when he was there in preschool, he couldn't be potty trained. And the teacher there basically said, I can't do anything for him. He's useless. And thinking back, it's like thinking back, I'm sure that he took this in, and that hurt him. And, that would hurt anybody. And those are negative feelings. Those are negative energies. And instead of saying, we need to try something alternative and we need to work with where he's at his level, that's a more positive approach. And this is where, again, the negative entities, and if maybe he embodied his skills now that he has, maybe he would have been able to fill himself up with love and light and projected that onto somebody else. I don't know. Just a thought. But I'm just kind of telling all of this story to show you how bad everything built up over the years and why he and I had a dark entity attached to us. So, that was just a brief example of preschool. And then he went to specialized school. And then there he had a hard time conforming to all of the rules that they had. And since he didn't conform to the rules, he had behaviors and he had, a lot of problems. And again, if somebody just kind of worked with him, then maybe this wouldn't have happened. I don't know. Or maybe it was the dark entity at the time that was attached to him. I don't know. I can't, hypothesize on that. I can only hypothesize on what's going on now and how things are different now. So from there, he also was abused on a bus twice. He was hit by one of his bus aides, and during that time, it was a bus company that was contracted out. And they weren't attached to the district. They didn't have cameras on there. There was no accountability. There was no training, nothing. And he got hit by the aide. Another parent at the school saw it, thankfully. I fought for 3 months to try to get him the services that he has in place now. And that was trained aides on the bus, a Mars school district bus that drove him, a camera on the bus, and I wanted that in place for the rest of his life to try to keep him safe. And that took me 3 months fighting tooth and nail to do. Meanwhile, this is only a quick synopsis of what has happened. And then after that, he ended up being verbally abused by the aide that was provided by the district. I watched that video and it was heartbreaking. And, it's just such a shame, the way children who are nonverbal have gotten treated. And, now knowing what I do about him being connected to source, some of his behaviors were the lack of people understanding. Can you imagine if you had all of these spirits talking to you, and you can't talk, so you can't explain it, and you could be sitting in the middle of a classroom and having like a million different spirits, whether whether it's negative or not. I mean, just any spirits that are not physically there, just talking to you, is completely overwhelming for a child. And I know that now because I saw spirits when I was young and ended up blocking it out. And I got it was blocked out for me. But that's a different video. So, but you can imagine how that would cause a lot of behaviors, and especially if you don't know how to express that to anybody, or how to deal with it, or what kinds of protection, that I, now have been taught, like the different protection methods to use, and how to actually get rid of any negative energies. It's, once you use those tools, it's a game changer. And I know that because I see the night and day that has happened for Tyler. It's literally night and day since this door has been opened. And, so then, going back, so that was the bus incident was, I think, 2017. So now you're piling on a whole bunch of stuff onto this kid, then, let's see, let's fast forward to 2023, I think. So then Tyler went to the upper school of the special needs school, and that just ended up being a disaster. Like, I think at that time, well, I know at that time that the negative entity that was attached to us was affecting both of us. So that had a little bit to do with all the behaviors, a lot bit to do with all the behaviors that were happening in that school. And that's 110% sure. And because during that same exact time, I was going through probably one of the worst times of my life, where I was being abused by my boss, a narcissist woman who, again, I've let this go because, she did not know what she was doing. And I've accepted that and completely let it go. And, but during that time, I had issues with Tyler in school where, like, he ended up, it spread into the bus rides, because even though I had AIDS on the bus rides, it spread into that, where one time they forced me to put a harness on him, which I wish that I had never listened to that. And he ended up trying to get out of the harness on the bus and ended up upside down on the bus. And then he ended up getting out of the harness and crawling underneath the seats. And I was just like, wow, I could not believe that. And you want to talk about some negative energy there. Yeah. So that this was all like just piling up over years and years and years and years. And then after that, I, like I said, I think for maybe like 2 years, I was going through this horrible situation at my job. So that was affecting me, which was affecting Tyler, because Tyler and I are so connected and we're both empaths. So you can imagine the whole combination of everything, of like how bad it actually was. And, I laugh about it now because I've let this go, and it's such a relief to let all of this energy go. I've gone in through meditation and healed the both of us. And, I believe completely because, but, there's always something that comes up. So I'm still learning. I'm not an expert. I'm still learning. I am putting that out there. I'm just telling you, this is just my story. And I'm putting it out in the hopes of maybe if somebody is at a desperation, that it might, maybe it'll help them. I don't know, but anyway, so going back to that situation, I at that particular time, I got to the point where there were so many issues at school and the bus, and just it was a disaster that I ended up contracting with the school district to drive him myself, and then I went part-time at my job. And it was the best thing I could do, because then finally I knew that my son was safe. And at this time, just also remember that I didn't know anything about him being able to, be connected to spirit. That only started a year ago. This coming June, actually, so not even a year ago. During that time, and that definitely helped, but he proceeded to, still have behaviors at the school. And I believe, I know now that, like, from what I understand, because they kind of said it at one time, picking him, when I was picking him up, that basically, they don't know what to do with him. And as far as what Tyler has typed that they said was, this is where every single, I can guarantee every single adult with special needs understands 110% what's going on and what people are saying. And, a lot of people don't think nonverbal children do. Oh, they do. More than you know. I don't care who you are. That I will stand by that statement. And the things that he typed were, that the staff really were angry with him, and he felt that, he's an empath. So if he's feeling the anger, he is reacting to that. And not that that's right, and that is something we're struggling with now, is that I'm trying to teach him the tools that have been taught to me to help him in specific situations that he can't always pick up on somebody's, or, well, he can because he does, but I mean, he's got to help himself stop, picking up on other people's feelings. It is what I'm in the process of trying to teach him right now. So, we're not quite there. But it's been, 110% better, I'll tell you that. So going back to that, then he ended up leaving that school because they just basically said they couldn't do anything for him, and his behaviors were off the wall, and his behaviors were off the wall because he felt the energy that the staff was giving to him. And I can definitely 110% guarantee say that for sure, because of the program that he's in now. It's a different approach. The energy is different. They want to work with him. They don't need him to conform to all the rules of society, what at least he's come here for, I think both my children have come here for, is to show us and humanity, a different way of thinking, a higher level of thinking that breaks down these barriers that society has made. And it's why he could never conform to a typical, I should say, typical special needs school, because there's still the rules, and you can appropriately act without such rigid rules. There's ways to do it, and you would be amazed at the behavior change, and I could say that because I've seen it, and like I said, maybe it wouldn't work for everybody, but it sure has for my son. That's for sure. And so, going back to that, then Yeah. Then he goes to another special needs school that's supposed to like specialize in, you know, tough behaviors. And yeah, that was bad. This is where, you know, I had to go back. I had to go into meditation and heal my son, you know, and I don't know. I not even sure I'm 100% done because this was bad. At that particular school, the story that happened was I was at that time I ended up like just, you know, picking him up, you know, both ways. I was doing that at that point, you know. And I went to go pick him up, and I was outside of the school, and it was 1 minute before 1 minute before he were to come out, and he had an issue. And I know now the issue was just he was anxious to leave. He wanted to go. I was with Cole in the car, and I got a call, and they said, we can't let him go yet. I said, okay, well, why? Can I come in just so he could see that I'm there? I'm sure everything will be all right. No. We have to follow our procedure. We have to follow our protocol. And they proceeded to do some training, which he does not conform to, which is ABA trials. And not to knock ABA, you know, it might work for some kids, not for Tyler. And you know, Cole has been in an ABA program all his life, and he seems to be, he's doing good with it, but not every kid can. And they proceeded to do ABA trials with him, and his behaviors got worse and worse, and they ended up pinning him down. He was screaming so hard that he was broke blood vessels on his face. He hit himself in the face twice, gave himself a bloody nose twice, and they ended up having 7 staff pin him down on the floor. After I kept calling, and I was outside with Cole, and I got to the point where I went up to the front of the school, and I said, you have to let me in. And I think this might have been like 15, 20 minutes after, like, and they refused and said, well, okay, you can go around the back. Actually, this might have been about 30 minutes because the whole incident lasted about 40 minutes. And so I was so upset at this point. And I was to the point where if they were not going to let me in, I was going to call the cops because I needed to get in to my son. I knew it. Like, I instinctively knew it. And so me and Cole went around the back, and they let me in, and I walked in, and and you know, I'm trying to hold back my upsetness over this. But I walked in, and I looked over Tyler, and the 7 staff that were on him scattered off of him like rats. And I looked down at him, and it was almost like it was almost like angelic. It was like I looked down at him, and I said, Tyler, it's me, get up. And he looked at me with this dazed face, and like almost like he couldn't process that it was actually me. And then I said, Tyler, it's me, mommy. And then he stood up, and I took him out of that place. And you know, the staff had the nerve at that particular moment to say, do you want to hear what happened? And I just said no. And I said, I have to get my son out of here. And I took Tyler, and I walked out of that place, and he never, ever went back there, ever, and never will. And I ended up trying to go and sue them, And then that was an emotional mess because he was out of school now, and I let it go, and I just knew that from that moment on, I was going to try to keep this child safe. And then, yeah, that was tough. That was really tough. This kid had all kinds of marks all over his face from crying, and just the emotional trauma that had happened to him was unreal. And after that, he was home for quite a long time. We tried to do therapy at home. He couldn't, and I just didn't know what to do. And then after that, he ended up going to a different program, like an adult program that taught more of a DIR floor time approach. And I finally started to see his light shine through. And I had asked Spirit, I said, and this was before, again, I tapped into all of this stuff. I asked Spirit, please get him into a program that will help him flourish. And they answered me. And I ended up making a very big mistake, but I am now much more enlightened, because after he got into that program, there were a few things that I wasn't extremely happy about. His speech wasn't being utilized, and this was before we were typing to speech. He was using a talker with ProLoco, which is a program with pictures, and the teacher wasn't using it, and I had a real problem because he still had no way of communicating. So I decided to try to move him again to another clinic that was behavioral focus, because unfortunately I wasn't listening to my gut instinct. I was listening to everybody else, and I made another mistake. And I moved him into a clinic, and literally 3 days later, this kid got pinned down again for another 6 or 7 staff. Thankfully, I'm trying to look at the thankful part about this, is that this time it wasn't 40 minutes. It was only about 10 or 15. The owner of the clinic called me right away, and didn't make me wait like the school did. But it was the same thing, same exact thing. He was having behaviors, and then one staff pinned him down, and then all of a sudden it was another, I don't know, 5 or 6. I don't even remember how many staff that pinned him down. And it was very, very similar. And when we left there, I said to him, Tyler, I am so sorry. I will never make this mistake again. Never. And I vowed at that moment to, I had asked, I said, I need help. I need to figure out what to do, why this is happening. And Spirit answered me, and a lot of it was because he was talking to spirits and didn't know how to handle it. I mean, that has been proven right now, and he had the dark entity attached to him, and so did I at the time. And so then fast forward, I begged the owner of the other clinic to let him go back there, and she said, of course, and I was very grateful for that. And he's still there now. And but during that time after that, I would say, let's see, I'm trying to remember the timeline. That all happened. I got him back into the center that he's in. And then I think that was in September. And then in June, I lost my job. And then from there, it's kind of kicked off my spiritual awakening, his awakening, and everything, and then kind of leading into the dark entities. So I know that this is kind of long to talk about all this, but I think it's important to understand how over the years how it all kind of really piled up, and how if you let those negative energies keep piling up and up and up until you break it down, it won't go away. It's just going to get worse. And this is how like people end up being depressed, or all of these horrible things happen. Negative entities end up getting attached to somebody when so much gets piled on top that your light is gone. Like there's no brightness to get rid of it. I mean, how we deal with things every day is something negative might happen, but then you try to turn around and be positive. That chases that negative energy away. The positivity, love, and light chases the negative entities away, the negative energies. And and people may not realize this because you're doing it on an everyday basis. Like something, somebody cut you off, you get really angry, like, and then like, you go home, relax, and like, maybe you watch a TV show or something, or listen to some music, and that brings your vibration up. Well, what's happening there is that, that person cutting you off and making you all angry will now say then like 10 minutes later, okay, let's give this example. Your favorite song comes on and you're like, I love this and I remember this. Oh my God, this makes me feel so good. Well, now your vibration is up here, where when you were angry, your vibration down here. So now that vibration is almost like sucking it, like pushing it out of the way. Like, oh, okay, we're done with you, and that's how like you can just easily get rid of like the negative energies. But when you have pile on top of pile after pile, it's very difficult to get rid of that until you really have to sit down and say, I have to get rid of this negative energy, and I thankfully had help from a medium to kind of start this journey. Thank you, Patricia. Because I wouldn't have known what to do, because that negative entity was so big, because it was attached to me, and it was attached to, got attached to Tyler for years. And I'm not at that level yet to break it down to where she did, but she was able to break that down, and we thought it was gone, but it came back, and and thankfully, like I ended up texting her one day, and thankfully she didn't answer me for a couple days. I don't know if that was on purpose, but it did me a favor, because then what ended up happening is that I ended up fighting it myself, because I was in mama bear mode, and I had to get rid of this negative entity off of my son. And over months and months and months, I ended up breaking down that negative entity where it's gone. And that doesn't mean that negative things don't still happen. What it means is that big, huge negative entity that was attached to us was broken down so much where now I'm able to deal with the like everyday, struggles that may have, because I've taught myself how to bring myself into a higher vibration. And by staying in the higher vibration, it makes the negative go away, because, not only that was only like a short story of what has happened to me and Tyler in the past. There's like, just negative thing after negative thing. And, if it's like, it has not been easy. So I have a much longer story to tell. Maybe I'll make another, video about that, because I feel like, I wanted to make this video, like, to talk about the negative entities, and like a tiny bit about how it came about, and a tiny bit about how I was able to break that down. Because what's happening now is since I've learned how to do it, I'm able to, when it comes right away, I'm able to get rid of it right away, instead of stewing in it and making it, get larger and larger and larger. And this kind of goes into just like a small example of what happened today. And, I used that theory towards, some behaviors that Tyler was having, and and now there's the behaviors that he had are nothing compared to the way it was. And I wanted to mention that day that Patricia got that large entity off of him, it was like night and day. Literally, it was like a light switch. I kid you not. And I have to tell you that since, I'm divorced, my sons go to my ex-husband every other weekend. Well, for the past 17 years, because now they're 18, because over the past year, it's been great. A little bit less than a year, but, he would go to his father's house and have a problem every single time. And when this negative entity was taken off of us, he went to, it was actually a Thursday before he was going to his father's house. And that weekend, my ex-husband said he had the best weekend he's ever had. And since then, there hasn't been any issues. So how do you explain that? How do you explain that? Not easily, other than like, it was, I just can't tell you how like amazing that was. And the thing that was also happening that I learned over this journey was that negative entity was feeding Tyler negative, like, thoughts. So like, I found out that, when he was going to his father's, he was being he was being told, that like all these bad things were happening where they really weren't. And that's what negative entities do. They see your lower vibration and they feed off of it. So like if you have a fear of, I don't know, let's just say getting in a car accident. Like you have a fear of that, massive fear of that, and maybe that's connected to a past life of yours. If it never happened in this life, that's another video. But and every time you get in a car, you're like all anxious, and you're like, oh my God, I hope I can make it through this. I can hope I make it through this. What dark entities do, they see that your fear and anxiety, and they'll feed on that. And then you'll start thinking, oh my God, I can't make this turn because I'm gonna get in an accident. And that's what the negative entities do. And when I talk about that too, it's spirits that haven't crossed over. It's spirits that are angry themselves about something, that want to make somebody else's life miserable. Or it could be somebody like, that was, you're in a relationship with. Say you had a ex-husband that died and they hated you. That could be the negative entity that's attached to you, because now they can't cross over and they're miserable and they want to make you miserable. So now they see you have a fear of car accidents. So that negative entity is going to feed into your head. Well, you are going to get an accident. You are going to get an accident. You just better watch out. Don't make this turn, and until somebody realizes that's happening, and this is where it's a little bit like you have to open your mind to the unknown, because believe me, I would have never thought all of this stuff until I saw it firsthand. I saw it firsthand with my son. That's why I tell you that he's come in here to teach me and to be his voice, because he can't speak. So through typing, I've learned all of this, but through him typing. And, it's amazing. You would just never have guessed it. And, by his actions is how I'm, using my proof, because mediums, they always want proof. Well, that's my proof, is by his actions and his typing, saying that I'm doing it. You can't deny that. So what happened this morning was I used the techniques that I was thinking about, and I said, okay, he's having these behaviors again. He probably has another ear infection, because this kid gets constant ear infections. And I said, all right, what am I going to do? So as I was getting ready, I was in the bathroom, doing my hair, and I'm like, okay, you know what I'm going to do? If negative entities don't like love and light, well, I'm going to give Tyler love and light, because what I believed what was happening was his behaviors were because he was in pain. And because he was in pain, it brought down his vibration to a lower vibration. And because he was in a lower vibration, then the dark entities were able to get attached to him. So hence his behaviors. So I'm like, okay, so let me give him love and light. And I gave him love and light and sent tiny little hearts into his ear canal that is bothering him. And I just thought that way. And I kept sending him love and light. And I saw him like almost like glow, I'm a very visual person. So I saw these like tiny little, red and pink hearts going into his ear canal, and just filling him up. And so when he first woke up, I could hear he was having, like behaviors. And when I say behaviors, like, again, it's not like it was in the past, not even just like a little, like, makes like angry noises, like a little grumpy, little grumpy. That's what, and so I could hear him as I'm doing this, and then I could hear his demeanor changing to more happy, and then I could hear him laughing, and then I always have him type before we leave, where I to take him to the center, and I started having him type, and he said, he typed out, he's like, Mommy, I felt all the love that you were sending me, and it made me happy, and it made me feel better, and he said, Mommy, you finally get it. And I'm like, yeah, I guess I do. I'm still learning. So I wanted to tell like this whole story, and there's a lot more that I have to share. But this part was probably the toughest for me to go through over the past 18 years. So so I'll post more videos about stuff, and I might repeat stuff. I don't know, but it's just kind of, I'm kind of winging this channel and just kind of going with what is being told to me. And Zoe just came in here, so she's agreeing, so I think I have one of my spirit guides jumped into her, so because she always comes in at the right time. So yeah, I hope maybe this will reach out to somebody and and help. So thank you.